So today we are going to talk about some basic stuffs. Some of you may have already aware of those stuffs, and some of you may not. So, but we have to first, basically build the basics, and then of course we will, learn whatever the advanced modules we have. Okay. So feel free to ask any questions. Just raise your hand, and then I'll try to answer it. So let's start. Let me open my PPT. Okay. So yesterday, if you remember, everyone, we talked about what is application and what is infrastructure and how it works. Okay. So let's today understand in the terms of or in terms of data center. So what we are going to talk about first, like how these things were set up or arranged in the traditional systems, and then how these things have been moved to the cloud system, and from there we will start our Azure cloud journey. So let's understand, because that understanding is quite important to understand what was there before and what is now. So this is the image we are going to talk about first. I hope my screen is visible to everyone. Is it or not?
No, Manish.
Okay, so what I was saying, let me reiterate. So what I was saying, like yesterday we talked about, I just give you a little, brief about application and infrastructure. And today we are just going to see in terms of data center and in terms of basically how these things are set up. So to understand the cloud, we simply need to first understand how it was before. So okay, so here you can see, guys, we have application, and this we are going to use this image to understand what is the traditional methods. Okay, so let's say we have application. So every application which has been, which has been programmed or coded, that is something has two versions. One is server version, and another is client version. So server version and client version, we need to first understand. So for example, let's say if you have one application, for example, Instagram. Okay. So Instagram, whenever somebody has written the code for Instagram, okay, or whatever all the developers have written entire code for the Instagram. So the Instagram basically has two versions. One is the server version of the Instagram, and another one is the client version of the Instagram. So when I say client version of the Instagram, that version we usually install on our mobile or on our laptops. We simply go to the Play Store or the Apple Store and simply download and update it. So that is also an application, but that is termed as client application. So any application which is used by the end user is basically called client application. And we need to understand this server and client. Okay. And now coming back to the server. What is server? So anything, let's say if you have installed your Instagram, so you have to first log in into your Instagram. You have to create your user ID and password. After that, you keep start, posting your photos or creating reels or adding some status, anything, right? So all those things, let's say your photo, your status, your post, whatever data you are putting into that client application, that needs to be saved, needs to be processed somewhere. So that processing of your post, that processing of your reels, everything what you do on your client application is basically controlled and managed by the server application itself. So server application has two jobs. One is to fulfill the client's request. So client request is, let's say if client has requested, I'm going to post a photo, server will fulfill that request. Let's say if client is, I'm going to create a reel, server is going to serve that request. So server's responsibility or the server level of application's responsibility to serve the client request. That's the generic relation between these server version and the client version. So every version has server and client. Now the client, we understand client is something we install it on our end devices, mobile, laptop, anything. Other than, we need to understand server, because when you are going to work in an enterprise environment, you have to deal with the server level application. Client is also there, but server level application is more complex to deploy. Now to deploy this server level application, we need a hardware. Just like we need a laptop or mobile, for server level also we need a hardware, and that hardware we calling it a server. Simple. Now this server is, this is a physical server, which means there is a one big server we have inside the green one, And inside that server, it's basically a hardware machine. So server is nothing, it's a hardware machine. And the major components of any server is basically the CPU, RAM, and the disk space storage. These are not the only three components, there are other components, but these are the major components we need to learn, we need to think about as of now. So there is a server, and inside that server, server is a hardware device, I know. And in that case, get a CPU, we get RAM, we get disk storage. On top of this machine or the physical machine, we install operating system. So operating system is an interface between the hardware and the human. So always remember, operating system is an interface between hardware and human. So for example, even if you go to your ATM and you operate your ATM, and you just enter the click the button like I need to withdraw the cash, or I need to know my balance, or whatever it is. So that window which you are presenting with, that is basically an operating system. So to give the command to my hardware or to all the hardwares, we need a special kind of application. Again, application, and that we are calling it operating system. So here in the operating system, we are using, for example, I'm talking about the Windows. So Windows 2012, Windows 2016, Windows 2022, Windows 2025 as well. These are the latest one. Okay. Similarly, if I come back in the same reference to my laptop. So in the laptop, we also have our operating system. In the mobile, we also have our operating system. So before I install my Instagram or application, I need a operating system. So in laptop, we have Windows 10 or Windows 11. So those kind of operating system, we call it as client operating system. And the operating system we are using inside the server, we are calling it as server operating. So for mobile, we have iOS or Android. So those are client operating system, but their server operating system also comes. So anyways, now this is the physical level, and then we are installing operating system. And by using this operating system, I'm going to guide my hardware what they need to do. So for example, if I need to save file, then I'm going to use this component to save the file. If I need to process something, then I'm going to use this part or this part. Okay, now my operating system installed. Then on top of operating system, I am going to use my application. So, and that application is the server level application, right? So on top of this, I'm simply going to deploy. You can, the correct terminology is basically deploy, but you can call it install as well. So we are simply installing and deploying application on top of this operating. And this, once it will get installed, so their code is written in such a way like it has to serve the client request. And this server one, which is basically the application one server, is basically somehow connected with the client. So even for your mobile devices, when you install Instagram or Facebook on your mobile, the moment you install your and you register your details, it will get connected to your server by using internet. So that is why I have just mentioned networking. So there are a lot of things involved in this networking. We are not focusing on that part. All you need to know, the client must have some sort of connectivity with the server. Then only they can contact each other, they can communicate each other. Client, whenever the request is sending, server is going to fulfill that. If client is sending saving any photo, then server is going to save it here. And that is why you have seen, even if you have posted your photos and posted your videos on your mobile or laptop, and after that you change your mobile or you uninstall your application, your photos and your reels or whatever the data you have, that is not going anywhere. It will again come back to you, because it is not getting saved inside your laptop, or not getting saved inside your local client. It is getting saved in the server hardware or a server disk storage. So you can call it HDD, is like disk or storage, not specifically HDD, it's a disk or storage. So whatever the data you have, it's basically getting saved here. And from here, whenever you install your application on any device, and you do the authentication, like you provide the correct user ID and password, then server is going to give you all the data. That is how the entire sequence flow works. Now, coming back, this is my data center. So data center is basically a place, or a dedicated space, right? Where I have installed all my servers. So traditionally, what happened? We used to have data center in somewhere in the building, right? That data center is basically have multiple servers, server one, server two. So let's say I have application two as well, and I have application one. So application one I have deployed on server one, application two I deployed on server two. Then I made some arrangement of the some sort of networking arrangement, and I'm connecting. This is my app 2 client. So app 2 is also going to have the same option, server and the client version. So the client is going to be connected. So if app 2 is going to be here on the client machine, then it must have some mechanism to reach out to the server 2 of the app. So this is how it works traditionally. Now, to maintain this data center, we need specifically three major components. One is power, because the without power this server cannot run. Another one is cooling, because here we only are talking about two servers, but in a regular data center, when you will if you get any chance or if you have visited, then we have multiple, maybe hundreds or two hundreds of servers working together. All those are heavy devices, are basically generating heat. In order to cool them down, or in order to work them properly, we need to apply cooling mechanism also. So the power, cooling, and then the third part is the networking, which means if server 1 has needs to connect it with server 2, or if we have multiple servers we have in place, then of course we need to do some sort of arrangement to of their networking itself. So server 1 and server 2 and server 10 or server 11, some of them of course need some sort of networking with each other. Then that part is called networking. So there are three major components: power, cooling, and networking. So keep this in mind, and we will talk about it, the significance of these three later. Okay, this is how the previously everything was work, and we are call it basically on-premise infrastructure or the traditional infrastructure. Initially, this is how everything started. Now let's move to the next evolution. What happens after this? Then, after we move from that structure, the next phase, you can say, or the next evolution happened, that is called virtualization. So what virtualization does? So what virtualization did, here you can see I have a separate machine, and this is my server 1, this is my server 2. Let's suppose something happened to the server 1, and due to any reason the server 1 is crashed. The moment server 1 is going to be crashed, my application 1 is unavailable, because if the server is not working, then of course no, even the whatever the request which is coming from the client, they will not be getting fulfilled. So if the server is getting crashed, nobody is able to work. I mean, no client offer that service able to work. So now you can say, okay, fine, then we can, set up multiple servers for the application one. Yes, that we can do. So for example, I have one more server in the same in the same data center for application one itself, so that if one server goes down, my another server should serve the request to the clients. Absolutely fine. But don't you think if setting up another application server, or setting up the same server, is going to increase your cost? Again, it is going to take a space in your data center, because if one for application one, for every application, if you have to set up minimum of two server, then you need double space. Again, the more power you are going to consume, and again more heat will be generated, and again more cooling is required. So these are the challenges. Also, one more thing, let's say if you have two servers as well, and both server somehow due to any reason gets down, then how are you going to handle the situation? Or maybe just try to think in a way. Let's say right now you have two application running in your organization. Now your organization get a new big contract, and they got a contract, and they are saying like, okay, we need to deploy application 3 as well. So the moment you are going to deploy application 3, you need again a dedicated server, a brand new server. So it means you need to first order your server, you need to buy a new server, then you are going to place that server into your data center, and then the deployment will start. So those things are going to take time. So again, client will say, okay, you are so going to take time, because you never know. So for example, you place the order to purchase a server, and vendor is saying like, okay, I'm going to deliver it in next 1 week, and due to any reason, if vendor is not able to deliver into next 1 week, then again your project, your application deployment is on hold, and it is again unnecessary getting delayed. Now, to get rid of these concerns, there is a next evolution come into the picture, and that is called virtualization. So what changes in the virtualization is that instead of buying single server, one server, okay, what virtualization did, they come up with a big huge server. So for example, if you look here, we have 4 CPU and 16 GB RAM. Here also same sort of arrangement here as well. But here, what they say, okay, let's buy a huge and big server which with multiple CPUs, multiple RAMs, and multiple storage. So you can see 256 CPUs, we have 500 GB and 4 TB of storage space we have bought together. That is called, now this hardware needs a separate operating system to manage, and that operating system is called hypervisor. So hypervisor is basically a sort of operating system which is required to manage these bulky hardwares. And these are all in one box only. There is only one big server. Instead of 100 servers, you only need to buy only one big box. But it is also physical. But again, this only one box you need to maintain. So the moment you change it from 100 individual server to one box, then your rate is going to be reduced, your cooling effort is going to be reduced, and your networking effort is also going to be reduced, because all are in only one box itself. And we are calling it either a VMware or VMware and Hyper-V are the major provider for the virtualization. We have other companies as well. So VMware is again a company itself, and Hyper-V is a solution provided by the Microsoft. So they say, okay, go. There is a Nutanix as well. So let's just go ahead, and all you need to buy a big box. And out of that, let's say we bought a big box. Now we installed the hypervisor, which is fine. On the top of hypervisor, we need to install our own virtual machines. So you can see this is my server one, this is my server two, and this is my server three. And we are calling it a virtual machine. Why? Because these servers are not physical. They are installed on top of this. So what happened? When I install this virtual machine or install this server, I get 4 CPU from here, I get 16 GB of RAM from here, and I get 256 GB of here. So whatever the left, I can create another server. Whatever is left, I can create another server. So this is how the evolution or the the change has happened. From instead of single physical server, we bought one physical server, and inside that one physical server, we start creating multiple servers, which is virtual. We are calling it a virtual. Yes, Bharini, saying something?
Yeah, I have a question. Are we not relying on one single physical structure here?
Yeah.
And will that not be a problem? Like, if that isn't a problem, then what do we do?
Yes. I'm coming to that. Yes, of course. That's a very valid point. But
Yeah.
let me first explain the structure, then we'll
Yeah,
come to
sure.
that high.
Go ahead. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so this is about the virtual machine. If you have heard the word virtual machine, so this is the first point from where the concept of virtual machine comes into the practicality and picture. Like, okay, this is how the virtual machine. Okay, the creation of this virtual machine is also easy. So, for example, right now you are app one, app two, and app three. You are running your three virtual machines. Now your client or your organization gets a new contract to deploy application 4. You do not need to buy any extra hardware, because you are still left with the resources here, and these are CPU, RAM, and disk. These are also called resources. So if you heard the word resources, then try to think in terms of these CPU, RAM, and disk, and memory, and all the components we need to run a server. So this server, if you are, for example, if I have consumed 4, 6, and 8, 8 and 6, 14, and 18. So 18 CPU, if I minus 18 out of 256, still I have a lot of CPU available with me. 16 GB, 12 GB, 16 GB. If I have reduced, all these sizes of RAM, again I have enough uh, memory available, and again I have enough disk available. So I can quickly create my next application for server, or even if I need to set up another application one, a replica of the application one, because let's say if something goes wrong with this server, then I can also do the same thing. Of course it is going to take some more CPU and disk, but at least I do not need to buy a separate physical server. So that saves us from the buying effort and installing effort and ordering effort. And again, since this is okay, now coming to the point of, let's say what will happen if this box goes down. So that is why most of the companies, I mean, if there is a small company and it is entirely depends on their budget, okay, so that is why most of the company, what they did sorry they did to buy one more box similar to this. There is another one more box, and they application for one instance of application one, they are running in box one, and one instance of application one in running into the box two, so that if anything goes wrong with this particular, then it should be the another box should be able to help us. Okay, one more point. Let's say this virtualization in this evolution of virtualization, there is one more thing happened. I mean, here I have maintained like disk and storage is 4 TB, right? So what happened, like they have segregated this disk part. They have said, okay, we are going to create a separate disk which is going to connected with this the separated storage, not disk. Okay, a separate storage. It seems the hypervisor and this big box has only CPU and RAM, and the entire storage solution is separated from this box. So that if this box goes down, at least my storage will remain same. My data is not going anywhere. So that is also one of the method being used in the past. So that is by our hypervisor. Again, the challenge with the high availability, as Bharani, it is not possible for every organization to buy, because these are more costlier boxes. So not it is not possible for every organization to deploy multiple boxes just to serve multiple virtual machines. So that cost is again the part. Again, let's say what about if I ran out of this resource capacity? For example, if I have deployed enough server which is going to consume my 256 RAM, I have deployed enough server to consume 500 GB RAM, then what I'm going to do? Do I need to again create a new box? Or if I do not need to create a new box, then maybe I can increase the resources, but in that case I need to shut down every machine. So if anything goes wrong in this piece, every virtual machine, every piece of the infrastructure which we have built on top of it, it will go away. Okay, so that is the challenge. Then we have come the another or the next evolution. And okay, one more part. Again, the client connection will remain the same. Client is not going to know like it is a virtual machine or it is a physical machine. For client, it will be the connection. You see, for the app one client, it is remains the same. So even if we are hosting a virtual machine and my application inside that virtual machine, I need to make sure my server should have the communication with the my client. So if you think from the client's perspective, they don't care how many servers are here. It is a virtual or is it a physical? They don't have to do. So this arrangement will remain the same. Okay. Now the next evolution come, and that is called cloud evolution. So in the cloud evolution, what happens? Pretty much the same structure, but this burden of maintaining the box, purchasing the box, maintaining its power, maintaining its cooling, maintaining its networking, all of it is basically taken care by the Microsoft or Amazon or Google or whatever or whoever company is giving you the cloud solution. So what they said, inside the cloud data center, pretty much the structure remains the same. Only thing, the data center, what we are talking about as a data center, or all these boxes, it is something taken care by them. They have installed the boxes at their dedicated space. They have installed the storage at their dedicated space. They have installed CPU, RAM, everything, all hardware component is something which is dedicated at there. We don't need to do anything in the to manage anything in the cloud. It is completely managed by entirely managed by the Microsoft, Amazon, or in case of Azure it is managed by Microsoft. In case of AWS it is managed by Amazon. In case of Google Cloud it is managed by Google. In case of Oracle it is managed by Oracle itself. Now, so what we will get? Okay, so if you understand, in order, yes, Bharani, saying something.
Yes, thanks. I'm just trying to understand this a little
Hmm.
more in detail. The
Sure, sure.
cloud part, which they are going to, I mean, I'm trying to understand it in detail. So, cloud part, which they're going to maintain, that's
Mhm.
also the physical part, which the
Yes,
third party is doing instead of we
yes,
doing it ourselves. Is
yes,
that what you're
yes,
saying?
yes,
Okay. But still there's a risk of losing information or anything like that, right?
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
If anything goes down into their data center, then of
Yeah.
course we are going to lose that. But
Yeah.
to that is why when we will go to the cloud center, right? So Microsoft or Amazon, they have also provided us some option to do to store our data for more than one place, so that if
Mm-hmm.
their one data center goes down, the I mean, in the next slide we'll talk about the cloud data center. Then there I'll explain you how they are managing the data. Then hopefully
Mm-hmm.
it will get clear. But yes, it is pretty much possible. Like if even it happened many times. A few days ago itself, there is an outage in the Microsoft data center,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
some of the client was not able to access their application, because if anything goes wrong in the Microsoft space or their data center space, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of course,
Mm-hmm.
we are not able to log in into our server, and if the server is not reachable, then client is also not reachable. I mean, it is not working for. So
Yeah, that's
even if you have seen many times, sometimes you have must have seen the Facebook is down, or the Instagram is down, or the WhatsApp
right.
is down.
Mm-hmm.
So when those kind of services gets down, it seems something wrong happened into the data center of those companies. So
Yeah.
of course we are not managing the hardware, but yes, underlying there must be a hardware. It's nothing like cloud is not like something which is flying above
Of
our head,
course.
but
Yeah.
yeah, so it is simply the only thing we don't get to see that. But yet, one more thing, since these Microsoft and Amazon and Google, these are very large and huge companies, so they have a lot of arrangements to manage their data center, because they are giving there is a terminology called SLA, service level agreement. So as per the service level agreement of Microsoft,
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft is compelled, or Microsoft is offering like 99.99% of availability, which means out of 100%, 99.99 time your services will be available, and it is a guarantee given by the Microsoft.
Okay.
Same way,
Got it,
uh,
Manish. In
the
layman
Amazon.
terms,
Yes, yes, go ahead.
sorry to interrupt then.
No, no,
In
go ahead.
layman terms, if I have to really say that, maintaining server is quite difficult for me. It's like the extra bag that I need to carry, which is too
Yes,
heavy for me. So I'm giving it to somebody else to hold it.
yes,
And that could
yes,
be Microsoft or Google or somebody else.
yes,
Is that
Amazon.
what I
Yes,
understood? Okay.
yes,
Is that
yes,
right? Okay. Okay.
yes, yes, that is absolutely right. Okay,
Okay. Thanks.
now just adding to that one, let's say the Microsoft is managing for us. Let's talk in Microsoft terms, because anyhow we are going to talk about the Azure. So let's use the Microsoft. So let's say Microsoft is managing for us. Okay, so Microsoft says, okay, if you are going to create a virtual machine, I am going to give you one single window, and that window name is called Azure Portal. So I am going to give you a single window where you can log in, and you can create your own virtual machine. Simple. So if I'm going to create my own virtual machine, then I'm going to, of course, if I'm going to create my virtual machine, I need an operating system to run that virtual machine. And that operating system installation is also done by the Microsoft. Only part we need to do, we need to tell the Microsoft while creating my server or virtual machine, like I am going to use Windows 2016, I am going to use Linux Red Hat, I'm going to use Ubuntu. These are the different operating systems. Or I'm going to use Windows 10. So whatever server you are creating, you simply need to choose the operating system and Microsoft will install it on your behalf. Also, we also need to choose what CPU, how much RAM and how much data I need, because these are the things we need to tell the Microsoft so that Microsoft can prepare and develop one machine for us and give it to us. So these things are pretty much there. I am not going to say Microsoft, okay, I need this companies of CPU or I need this company of hard disk. No, that is not the possibility. Only thing I can tell Microsoft, I need 4 CPU, I need 16 GB of RAM, I need 256 GB of disk, and I need Windows operating system. These four information I'm going to supply them. They will build a machine for on our behalf, and they will simply give us the option like, okay, this is your machine. Now you can log in into your machine and you do whatever you want. Like, so whatever the application I would like to install, I can install it. So I do not need to worry about it. Okay, so now what happens? What are the things changed from the virtualization and the traditional platform to the cloud? The maintenance of the entire data center is gone. I do not need a dedicated space in my office. I do not need power. I do not need cooling. I also do not need a networking infrastructure in my office. So if somebody is starting a new company today and they don't have any infrastructure, IT infrastructure, and when I'm saying IT infrastructure, the server end, not this client end. So they don't have any data center space, they don't have budget for the data center, they don't have anything for their data center. They can simply start their entire data center or build their entire data center into the cloud itself, and quickly also. So let's say if I have three machines running in my cloud, immediately I got a contract from my organization, and I get like, let's say I have to deploy five more application servers. I can quickly in the span of 10 minutes I can deploy my five or maybe 50 virtual machines in a span of 10 minutes to 15 minutes, and I'm ready to serve the project. So that is the benefit I'm getting, which means, also, let's say if you have, the one more benefit is that cloud work with the concept of pay as you go. So when I say pay as you go, so it's pay as go. Okay. So pay as you go is basically means consumption model. So for example, right now I am I have three servers running in my cloud. Tomorrow, due to any reason, I lose the contract, or maybe I'm not able to renew my contract. Then of course I don't need these three machines, or maybe I don't need this particular machine. Then I can simply decommission this machine and I don't need to pay anything. But if I go with this approach, okay, if let's say if I only have I don't need the this third machine, I can simply delete that. That's not an issue. But the rest of the resources are simply underlying unutilized for me. And in this approach, even if I cannot delete that server because it's entirely physical, if the contract is gone, then maybe that server is lying unutilized without any of use in my data center. So that is also the important factor we need to understand. Pay as you go, whatever hour. And yes, the billing happens on hourly basis in Microsoft Azure. This is the key point, even for the interview guys. In Microsoft, the billing of any resource happens on hourly basis, which means if you have installed you have created one virtual machine, let's say 6 p.m. in the evening, then the bill is calculated for 1 hour. Even if you are going to delete in next 10 minutes, you have to pay for at least 1 hour. So this is one concept we need to understand. Okay, so this pay as you go model, go with the cloud option. If you need, you use it, you can build it whatever you want. The moment your use is over, you can simply decommission it. So that's concept is called cloud. And to create the resources, and yes, in the cloud terminology we are simply calling it resource. So other than this virtual machine, we have multiple resources which we are going to see later in the session, like we need to do also. Other than that, there is one more benefit which cloud is giving is here. in this arrangement, the networking part is something also requires physical devices, which means the if I talk about in this approach or in this approach, the networking is absolutely needs to be going to be there. But to do that networking, we used to have own physical routers, connectors, hubs, switches. Those are again so networking device hardware devices are also going to be there. With this approach, we do not need these networking devices. I can simply use the internet, and I can let my client to use to connect with my application server by only using internet, although it is not very much secure. So we also have that options later in the cloud course. But I'm just simply telling you, even if you, so for example, if I am starting a company, I do not need to buy any kind of box. I do not need to buy any kind of device. I can simply deploy multiple virtual machines if I have my applications ready. Putting up my applications ready, then of course my clients must have their own laptop and their own mobile, and I can provide them the connectivity through that. So for example, all the social media, everything we are using on mobile, it's basically working over the internet. You do not need to install any VPN or any kind of dedicated networking. So with the use of internet, we can simply start our entire data set. So that's about the cloud structure. So in all three, I hope I explained all these three models, how it works. Any question till now, guys? So if no question, then I'm taking silence as a yes. Let's go to the next slide and now understand how Microsoft is. Yes, Bharani, you are saying something?
Yeah, I'm just trying to ask you here,
Mhm.
like if you're giving some kind of access to our data, can we say data that's there in the cloud
Yes, yes.
to somebody else, a third
Mhm.
party, is that okay to do it?
Okay, see, there are many options and flexibility you get in the cloud. I mean, let's say if you were talking about, if I am storing my, for example, you are running a finance related organization, right? And you have multiple Excel sheet and confidential information. Of course, there is a certain standard which we are calling it the compliance and confidentiality agreement. Okay,
Mm,
so when you are going to with the Microsoft, okay, and this
mm,
is called public cloud, okay. So of course, Microsoft is giving you lots of confidential and compliance agreement. Microsoft has to follow the law of the land, or even the Amazon or Google as well. So if Microsoft has the data center in India, then that data center needs to follow the law of the land. If the Microsoft data center has in Europe, okay, then Europe has its own law to protect the data of their own. So let's say if you are deploying any virtual machine inside the Europe region of the Microsoft cloud, okay, then nobody can access the data outside the Europe, because it is their law of the land. Like the data should not leave the Europe's boundary, basically.
mm,
So similarly, they provides you a lot of compliance and confidentiality agreement. But yes, the bottom line is again, you are anyhow storing your data to the public cloud, which is again the third party. That remains the
mm,
same. But yes, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, they are promising you, like, we are not
mm,
misusing your data. Just like if you remember, I mean, if you have also,
mm,
all of us have saved, like
mm,
in Instagram, you open something and you search for
mm,
something. The
mm,
next day, you keep started getting ad related to that.
mm,
So of
mm,
course, they are saying like they are not going to share the data to anyone. But
mm,
if they are doing it any in the back end, you cannot
mm,
say anything.
mm,
But but you also need to understand, like, just because, let's say, if I have a Geo mobile connection with me, so whatever I'm talking, Geo is more than capable enough to track my every data, every call,
mm,
right? Up
mm,
now it is up to Geo. Geo is promising, my government Geo is promising, like, okay, I'm not doing it.
mm,
But if they want, they can absolutely do that. Yes, it's the agreement. Yes,
mm,
let's say if your organization found your data has been leaked, you are in your full rights to go and drag Microsoft in the court, or Amazon, whatever the cloud you are using, and you can show them like, okay, boss, my data has been leaked or misused, whatever it is. now you have to answer this. So they are bound to answer you as per the law. So okay, I hope
Thanks.
I answered.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Okay, so now let's go and understand this cloud structure, how exactly Microsoft is set it up. So this is just a glimpse, I would say, a structure like how Microsoft is saving. So here we are also going to understand few terms. So what Microsoft says, Microsoft has basically categorized their data center into region. So if I say data center, then they are talking about the region. So for example, in India, Microsoft has three regions: South India, Central India, and West India. Similarly, in US, they have East US, West US, Central US, North US, Central West US. There are multiple. Okay, so it completely depends on. In Europe, they have West Europe, South Europe, lot of regions. So Microsoft has basically categorized into the regions. So region is basically a geographic location where Microsoft has set it their own data set. So if you look at this data center, so in region, usually the pattern which Microsoft follow, in one region they have three different availability zones, and all these are different physical locations. So for example, in Azure region in Central India, for example, there is a data center in Mumbai. Okay, so all three data centers are not in Mumbai. One data center, maybe I'm not aware of the geographical structure of the Mumbai, but I'm assuming. So if one data center in Mumbai, for example, belongs is in Bandra, then they are keeping the another one in Borivali, and then they are keeping another one maybe somewhere in the sea. Okay, so they are saying like these three different data centers will be there, and they are calling one data center as their availability zone. This is the cloud terminology, and you need to remember it all the time when your throughout your journey of the availability zone. So when we are going to create the resources in Azure, first we need to choose the region. In which region, or in which I need to tell Microsoft, I need my virtual machine to be created in India region. I need my virtual machine created to be Europe region. And every region has its own compliance, has its own confidentiality and law of the land. It's entirely different. So we have to be, so Microsoft is giving us the option for that. Okay, let's say I chose, for example, India. Okay, so in India, if I'm choosing the Central India, then in Central India, I'm getting three availability zones. In the South India, again, I'm getting three availability zones. Same goes for the another region. So in one region, Microsoft decides three regions. There are few regions where they do not have yet developed the three zones. So what happens? Let's say, for example, there is a West India, and inside the West India, they have built their availability zone one, but they are still working on availability zone two and availability zone three. So you can create your resources in availability zone one, but you will not get the option of availability zone two and three because it is still in progress. So there is a website, I will let you know. Microsoft keep updating the number of regions and the data center by using that website. So you can absolutely see that. Okay, so this is the concept of region. Now coming back, and inside the region, we have three different data centers, and all these data centers have separate power, have separate cooling, and have separate networking. So if one data center goes down, our data can be available in this and this. Even two goes down, if yes, the entire region goes down. For example, if the entire region goes down, for example, let's say Central India, entirely Central India goes down or cut off, then in that case, Microsoft also provides another region. But in that case, we have to choose. So what Microsoft is saying, I am going to give you the option, but how you are going to ensure your high availability, it is up to you. So for example, if I have my virtual machine or virtual server which I have installed in availability zone 1 only, if anything goes wrong with this particular zone, then Microsoft is not responsible. My If anything goes wrong with this data center or availability zone, and I have my resources created in only inside the virtual machine in this data center, then my data will be not accessed till the time it is not up. If I would like to ensure the high availability for my application, then I need to deploy here, and I need to deploy here, and I need to deploy here as well. Or maybe at least here and here. I can choose. I can deploy on all three zones, or I can deploy in one, or I can deploy in two as well. So it is our responsibility. That is where the cloud administration, the DevOps engineer comes into the picture. Because when application is going to be hosted, these are the decisions needs to be made from the infrastructure point of view. Okay, we are going to use the Central India region, which is fine. Then we are going to deploy our application in two zones or three zones. And yes, if you deploy the in more zones, you have to pay more as well. Your application is running fine, which is more than one instances, but payment is also will get increased. So that is again, I can say, the trick of the cloud providers, but we have to follow that. Okay. They are also saying, like, if you are not satisfied with this region, you can simply go deploy your entire availability, entire application into another region as well, because they have all their regions connected with each other. They have all their data center and availability zones connected with each other. So is that concept clear, guys? How this availability zone 1, 2, and 3 works and everything. And I specifically want all of you to understand this infrastructure, because later when we are going to talk about these things, again, you need to imagine like how we have setting up our cloud infrastructure. Is it clear, everyone, till now? Yes, Niranjan, you are saying something. So are they going to sync my data in all region? If you choose so. If you choose while setting up your virtual machine, or while setting up your resources in it, I'm not going to call virtual machine, let's call it resources. So if you are setting your resources, and while creating your resources, if you choose, if you allow Microsoft, like, please sync my data into another region, they will do that. If you won't, then they won't do it. Niranjan, I hope I answer your query. Okay. Bharini, I saw the hand.
Yeah, Manish, what's the advantage of being of these availability centers and being available in multiple places? I understood, like, if one center goes down, it's available in another center, but it's the responsibility of the Microsoft to maintain it, right? So
Right.
why are we concerned, and why we need to choose the region at all?
See, the region, there are two, basically, 2 points we need to understand. Let's
Mm,
say if you are in India, right?
mm,
So if I, and see, all these clouds are basically working on the internet, right?
mm,
So if from your lab, you are sitting in Delhi, for example, right?
mm, mm,
And your data, let's say, for example, you choose the Central India, and for example, sorry, West India, right? And in
mm,
the West India, Mumbai region comes, for example.
mm,
So
mm,
accessing your data from Delhi to Mumbai is easier. But if you
mm,
host your application, for example, in Australia,
mm,
in the Australia region, right? You can do that. There is no problem.
mm,
But if you
mm,
host your data into the Azure region, sorry, in Australia
mm,
region, and
mm,
you are sitting in Delhi, your users or client is sitting in Delhi. So if they
mm.
would like to access the data, then the data has to come from the Australia region to India region. So that
Yeah,
latency,
but
distance,
yeah, the latency. Okay, got it. Yeah, got it.
yeah.
Now I got it.
Yeah, so the latency part is going to increase. First thing, okay, the response
Mm,
will not be that much better, which you can do it. Okay, the second point is, if you are hosting your data inside this particular data center, right? If anything goes wrong with your data center, then you can ask Microsoft, or you can, fight with Microsoft, like, okay, I need my data. You have promised me 99.99% of service, but let's say if you're hosting your data in Australia again, and you cannot, from India, you cannot go ahead and in Australia and ask Microsoft, because let's say if Australia has no such rule for the data protection, right?
mm,
You cannot go ahead in Australia, and so Microsoft will say, in Australia, we don't have any data protection rule. I can erase whatever data I want. So you cannot do anything to Microsoft, because so that is why when we are deciding all these factors, okay, we have to understand the contract pretty much. We have to understand these factors are okay. There is, let me give you one more situation. What about if you have an application which is accessible globally? So for example,
mm,
if you have 10 users sitting in India, and if you have 10
mm.
users sitting in Australia, right?
Correct.
Then how you are going to do that? Okay, that part is also being taken care by the Microsoft. In that case, first thing, you can absolutely, you need to first decide which is going to be your primary region. So for example, if you have multiple people, for example, if you have more users sitting in India and less users sitting in Australia, then you can make your primary region India and the secondary region Australia. So your data will be replicated both the end. Your Australian user is going to use from the Australian region data center or availability zone, and your Indian users are going to use the Indian data center. And in order to do that, yes, Shankar, just give me 1 minute, okay? In order to do that, Microsoft has given multiple services, and there is something called CDN, Content Delivery Network. So, for example, if you have seen, you have a Netflix or Amazon Prime, right? So, if you're using your Netflix and if you're watching any movie when you are in India, and if you're using the same Netflix when you are in Australia or Europe or
Mm,
America, okay,
mm,
then same movie so Netflix has also done something same thing, so that all the Indian people are, if their Indian movie is going to be watched, then they
mm,
can simply give you from the data center which is in the India. But let's say you
mm,
move directly to the Australia, right?
mm,
So from the Australia, of course, the Indian movie content is not here, right? So they are going to get it from here for you because they are
mm,
promising you. In order to
mm,
do that, there is a terminology, or basically what they are using, this content delivery network. So
mm,
this is also, we have to use that when it's all basically the part of the robust infrastructure design based on your
mm.
application.
Yeah.
Yes, Shankar.
Optimize how it will be sync the data with multiple regions.
See, it's not our headache, honestly. It's completely Microsoft headache to do that. We simply need to
Yeah.
tell Microsoft, boss, I need this region and this region, my data to be synced with this region and this region. So it is completely up to them how they are doing it. We simply need to, that is one of the benefit. We do not have to worry how they are operating, what they are operating, what cable they are using, what physical machine they are using. We do not need to worry about anything. We simply need to tell Microsoft, I need this kind of setup into for my application or for my organization. Please give
Mhm.
me that. Microsoft will say, okay, that's my responsibility. I will let you. I will give it to you.
As per my understanding, clustering will be coming into the picture.
See, that's what I'm saying. Clustering absolutely is good. See, the basic technology says clustering, but that cluster is something we don't need to manage.
Yeah,
That's
correct,
what I'm
correct.
saying.
I do understand. But
The
just my
clustering
concern
is
is how
something
to
we
sync
don't
the
have to
data.
do. Yes. So now, if we have been in our virtualization or traditional platform, then that case we have to manage our clustering. But here we don't need to worry about. We simply to tell, okay, this is what I want. So
Actually, I'm a
okay,
platform guy. That's what I'm asking.
okay. So you are
I'm from platform support. Platform support.
okay. Okay, you are from platinum support. Okay. Okay.
Platform
So
support. In the sense, OS support.
okay, you are from the platform support. Okay, platform support. Working in Microsoft?
No, I'm working for Dell.
Okay, you are working from Dell. So yes, Microsoft uses Dell hardwares too. I mean,
Yes.
the only thing that we need to simply understand, like whatever we used to purchase. I'm sure from platform support. So earlier, maybe your company used to sell Dell servers and Dell switches directly to the different
Yes. Yes.
organization.
Correct. Even
Now those
nowadays,
things are simply the
yeah.
Microsoft. Yeah,
Even upcoming days, even Dell also planning to launch this one, our cloud platform,
own cloud.
Apex.
Yeah, of course,
Yeah, own cloud.
absolutely. So
Even HP
yes,
also planning to start Green Lake
yeah.
on cloud platform.
Yeah, of course, they can do that. So
Yes,
this is basically the
yes,
trend which is going on. Yes.
yes, correct.
So that is
Because
why
they
we
have
all are ready.
advantage is they have hardware, right? Anyway,
Yes.
that is for
Advantage
them
is the
it's advantage.
hardware. Yes. Okay, so Niranjan is saying, if I choose not to utilize the sync service and encounter data loss due to a region outage, Azure would be a responsibility. No, Azure will not be a responsibility, because Azure says if you would like to save your data, you can absolutely, Azure says, like, I'm going to protect your data for 99.99%. But even that 0.01%, if the data get lost due to any region outage or due to any availability zone outage, it will be not responsible for the Microsoft. It is something Microsoft is very clear about. It's not just Microsoft. Any cloud platform is clear. It's same with the AWS and Google as well. So all three cloud platforms are pretty much, again, I'm saying, pretty much giving you the same sort of setup, same sort of services. it's only like it's just same like you are using whether you use a Airtel or your Jio phone, both of them providing you almost same sort of services, almost pretty much more or less the same sort of cost. Okay, so till now, are we clear, guys, for about this cloud setup and data center?
Manish, I have one doubt.
Yes, Srinivas.
Yeah. So Manish, availability zone is like is in a standby location. Whether it is in a primary goes down, is automatically standby. Like application will be up, or so both reasons we can uh, application will up and running.
Both I don't get your question properly. See,
No, no, no. So
availability
I
zone.
simply no, no. I simplify my questions. So
Yes, yes.
so I am my application is running on the uh, uh, Chennai location. Okay.
Okay.
So that is a primary location. So I have the
Uh-huh.
availability zone at Pune location. Okay.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So suppose the primary location my application is running. So due to some like disaster issue, so completely my application is shut downing. Automatically my Pune data center that application will be automatically bring down. It will taken care by the Azure, or we have switched to the standby.
Okay, got it. Got your point. Okay, absolutely. It's a very good question, guys. Again, so let's discuss about this. Okay, so let's say what Srinivas says. Let's say you have application one, and for example, again, I'm taking the previous reference. So this particular server, right? So this particular server I hosted in my availability zone one and availability zone two in both the data centers, right? Now, if anything goes entirely with this particular zone, then will my application directly start using this zone 2, or do I need to do it manually, the manual failover? See, there are few services in the Microsoft which will automatically fail over, but there are few services which you need to do it manually. So for example, if I talk about the virtual machine, so if you have your virtual machine in availability zone 1, of course you have chosen the virtual machine to run sorry, the replication for zone 2 as well, but you have to manually fail over. Okay, let's say if you have a storage account which is just a disk, right? For that you do not need to do anything, it will automatically fail over. So it depends what services, because there are certain category of services which we will see in coming sessions as well. There are certain services which Microsoft says failover for those services is my responsibility. There are certain services for which Microsoft says failover is your responsibility. So that is where we have something called IaaS, which is called infrastructure as a service. Then we have platform as a service, and then we have software as a service. So if I say what is the SaaS? So SaaS is, if I talk about the software as a service. So for example, your WhatsApp or your Outlook mail, okay, or your Gmail. These are the SaaS services. You do not need to anything. If your mail is hosted in zone 1 or zone 2 or zone 3, if anything goes wrong, it is completely the responsibility of the provider to fail over from one zone to another zone. Then second, we have platform as a service. In the platform as a service, what we are also saying, like there are some applications for which if I say platform as a service, so when we'll talk about the platform as a service, so in the platform as a service, even the cloud solution giving you up this, you do not have to install or choose the operating system. Everything will be taken care by them itself. You in the platform as a service, you do not create a virtual machine. You directly get a space to deploy your application, which we will see. There is an Azure app service we'll talk about. You are not going to get any kind of a virtual machine to set up, because if you have to simply deploy your application, and if I am saying why you care what operating system is the application has, or why you want to set up a virtual machine, if you have your code, why can't you simply give me your code and I will publish your application? So Microsoft is giving that option as well, which is called platform as a service. And then the third one is called infrastructure as a solution, sorry, service. In that case, I am telling Microsoft, no, I will take care of my own code. I need more control on what I am going to install. So Microsoft, okay, in the OS, it is you need to choose, but once you choose your OS and what application you are installing is your headache. How you are maintaining is your headache. So infrastructure as a service is one of the most widely options. Then we have platform as a service, and again we have SaaS solution where we do not need to maintain anything. So if you have infrastructure as a service, then slight burden which is in your head to do the manual failover. But if you are choosing your platform as a service, you do not need to worry about anything. Microsoft will take care of.
Yeah,
Okay, I
got
hope
it.
I answered this question.
Yeah,
Yes.
got it. Thanks.
Okay, so guys, this infrastructure hosting or the decision and the discussion about the infrastructure is really important, and we all need to understand in the simplest form as of now. Of course, when you work for the enterprise people or enterprise organizations, there are a lot of people who are going to decide a lot of things. So this is just the simplest form of understanding. Once we will get into the cloud journey, then we'll see how all these things. So is it for today? Let's wrap up the call, guys. From tomorrow, we are going to, back to we are going to create our this Azure portal. So if anyone, let me give you the option quickly here. So tomorrow, I hope I mean, we have a lot of theory today. So let's do some practical. So as of now, as I told you, in order to access all the uh, hardware resources which is maintained and managed by the Azure, Microsoft, we are getting one option called portal.azure.com. So portal is our window from where we will do the shopping for the Microsoft data center. We are going to create, and whatever we are going to do, we are going to, and Microsoft is calling us a tenant, which means in the cloud terminology, it's been assumed that, for example, if I created one machine and if I'm creating it for, let's say, 3 months, and after that I'm going to decommission it, then I'm simply a tenant for the Microsoft. So Microsoft is called as a tenant. So we'll talk about that this portal. But as of now, just think about this portal.azure.com. Okay, since I have actually expired or exhausted my free account, Microsoft is giving you, once you type this portal.azure.com, it's quite common. Then it will ask you to sign in, and you see no account, create one. Okay, maybe it will look like something different from your end because it all depends on, because I'm using it very frequently, so I'm not getting this. So it is going to ask you, you need to enter your email address, and if it will also going to ask you some credit card related information, and maybe it will deduct maybe 1 or 2 rupees. But Microsoft, okay, so you, if possible for everyone, okay, please create your free account with Microsoft. Microsoft will give you $200 for 1 month. So if you'll create your free account today, it will be valid for next 30 days with free credit of $200. So we can simply create any kind of virtual machine. We can keep it till it reaches the $200 cost. So if possible, so this is an assignment. Please create your free. It's quite simple. You do not need to do anything. It's very straightforward. Portal.azure.com. I put it in the chat. Go to this website and simply create you put your email account. You can create it any email account, your Gmail account, your Outlook account, I mean not your office account but outlook.com account, your yahoo.com, whatever email address you have, you use that email address and create your free account. And then we will tomorrow from tomorrow we'll see more about what are the resources we are going to create. We are simply going to learn a lot of things in this particular portal itself. And I'm not saying portal is the only way to connect the Azure cloud. There are multiple ways which we will discuss later, but for the sake of simplicity and the basics, let's understand or let's use only portal as of now. So portal.azure.com is your window to access Microsoft data center. So please create your account if possible, so that whatever the lab we are going to do, you have the option to perform your lab. And you can create it anyway. You do not need to use any specific email ID, any email ID. And I would strongly suggest use your personal email ID. Do not use your professional email ID if you have it. So are we good, guys? Can we wrap up the call for today?
Yes, Manish, thanks.
Yes, I think the session has been recorded. Yes, of course, you will be getting the
Go
recording.
ahead. Yeah, thanks.